Our local story shortly, but first, life after Gaddafi. After 42 years, Moamar Gaddafi's grip on Libya finally ended when he was killed after being captured by revolutionary fighters. His death raises more questions than it answers, with the most pressing being whether Libya can manage the transition from brutal dictatorship to functioning democracy without enduring the violence and chaos that has engulfed Iraq. Jeff Thompson looks back on the life of the man who was once the West's public enemy number one, and a warning that this story contains graphic images that some viewers may find disturbing.
From the sands of Sirte to the streets of Sydney, this is a day Libyans feared would never come.
We never thought that this day will happen.
It's very great relief. It's like you was in huge pain in your body and suddenly everything is gone, you know.
It is a great moment, so I can't express what I feel now. I think it is a great victory, something unbelievable.
But for a man who once declared himself the King of Kings, it was a horrible and humiliating end. Like Saddam Hussein before him, the last chapter of Moamar Gaddafi's life of eccentric absolutism and glittering palaces was reduced to hiding in a hole in the land he terrorised but could not escape.
He was the villain that everyone likes to hate and to a certain extent admire. And one of those things was that he was almost like an operatic figure. He almost strode the stage in a manner that was both admirable and loathsome. He dressed flamboyantly, he projected himself flamboyantly, he was a creature of theatre. I suppose what's surprising is the sense of how, in the end, he did die, because, of course, many individuals in his position in the past have actually fled when given a chance, but he was Libyan through and through.
Always ready to exploit his tribal roots and birth in a Bedouin tent, Gaddafi was a 27-year-old lieutenant when he overthrew Libya's monarchy in 1969, inspired by the nationalist military takeover in neighbouring Egypt. He immediately embarked on a tricky and often treacherous dance with the West, shutting down foreign military bases and extracting hefty profits from oil. He started wars and began acquiring weapons of mass destruction, with varying degrees of success. The increasingly flamboyant dictator brutally crushed all political alternatives, hunting down and killing dissenters both at home and abroad. Throughout the 70s and 80s, Gaddafi pursued terrorism against Western targets, from giving explosives to the Irish Republican Army, to a machine gun attack on London protesters, to the audacious destruction of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie in 1988, which left 270 people dead.
Acts like the Pan Am bombing were essentially acts directed against frightening and targeting the West. Initially, the West wasn't quite too sure how to handle Libya.
After decades as a figure hated and feared, Gaddafi cleverly began to reposition himself as an international statesman.
The reality was that he was a formidable voice when it came to speaking about African issues. It was a complicated voice, and many members of the African Union, which he headed in 2009, were unsure where to go with Gaddafi, as indeed was everybody. But Gaddafi, and there's no question about this, did place the continent in a broader sense and North Africa in a more specific sense on the map.
In 2003, as Saddam Hussein was toppled, Gaddafi renounced his weapons of mass destruction and state-sponsored terrorism.
Gaddafi then became quite appealing to the West, and you have to remember, he always came across as an anti-fundamentalist, this is anti-Muslim fundamentalist figure, so he was in that sense very appealing to Western powers who were fighting, for instance, such terrorist groups as Al-Qaeda.
In the end, it was not the West which Gaddafi had to worry about. The world's longest-serving Arab leader did not see the coming of the Arab Spring. Just as Egypt's autocratic example inspired his rise to the top, so too did its revolution inflame his enemies at home. Egypt and now Libya will struggle to fill the void their violent dictators left behind.
The Egyptian movement itself was certainly more developed and more coherent in a sense. What has happened in Libya is several factions coming together to fight a common enemy.
Egypt has experienced at least nominal democracy in the past. For Libyans, that has only ever been an impossible dream. New democratic institutions will have to compete with deeply entrenched loyalties to tribe and Islam.
And we hope that Libya is not coming to be in a difficult situation as what's happening in Iraq or other countries.